Coming up next on In the Box Seat podcast. He's getting his fee to do his job. When you go to the dentist, if you've got a tooth that needs to be fixed, you're not going to go to the dentist and sit in the chair and say, "Hi, Dr. Smith, my tooth is sore. What I want you to do is inject it here, pull here, niggle there, wiggle there, do that." You're just going to say, "I've got to fix it," because you're paying him to do his job. And I think it's the same with trainers. Get involved. Andrew Harrison continues to tell me that this podcast has absolutely no clout, no traction, no clout. I mean, he's going to get insulted for that comment live on air shortly, because last week's Andrew Fortune podcast has gone viral. I hope you enjoyed it, ladies and gentlemen. And then the next week, which is this week, guests have got onto aeroplanes to come and be on the In the Box Seat podcast. And our guests are from Australia and New Zealand today, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome them to our podcast. I'm going to start with a lady, Alexis Ramsey, and she is with us with her dad, Craig Ramsey, and these are names that are firmly entrenched in South African horse racing. Alexis, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Craig, lovely to have you here.
Thank you.
It's been a long time coming.
It has certainly, probably 15, 16 years since I was at Summerfeld, so it's fantastic to be back.
You, one of our biggest supporters of the In the Box Seat podcast. You send us wonderful messages all the way from
I don't
New
like
Zealand.
the rude ones, though. Yes,
Yeah, I'm surprised you're using the word wonderful, but yes, you certainly are supporters.
Now you, Grumps, look at that flash hat you've got on.
hey, it's cool. It's probably the first one I've ever been given.
Yeah, there we go, New Zealand Bloodstock, and all the treats. Look at this. Craig, you're telling me that this Hokey Pokey Crunch Whittaker's is world famous?
World famous in New Zealand.
Okay. Thank you for that. And you've got diabetes. You can't have these.
No. I can eat the whole packet.
Lovely. So that's it. And no more holidays. Holidays done. Everything's sweet.
I'm planning a new one.
Okay. Nice that you've got Craig and Alexis, because you've known the family probably since before Alexis was born.
The last time I saw Alexis, she was this high,
yes,
with curly hair.
Yeah.
It's still curly.
But she's got an accent.
That was a long time ago, yeah.
And she's got an accent.
Yeah, and Craig I've known for young. Yeah.
Well, lovely to have you here. Why are you guys here? And I mean, of course, your whole family. Tammy, you say Tammy's still at home in New Zealand, and Wesley is also at home. So just the two of you, they've left the two of you loose. Why are you here?
I think it's probably quite well known that we bought some horses for Hollywood earlier this year. It started off just a little foray into Karaka. We've been teasing Owen about the All Blacks beating the Springboks for decades until it swung the other way. And then it was very embarrassing to even mention rugby. And we thought it'd be a good idea if we couldn't beat South Africa on the rugby field, we might have a chance of beating them on the track. So I mentioned that in passing one day, and the response was, "Oh, do Kiwi horses still run fast?" And I said, well, only 8% of the horses in Australia are New Zealand breds, but they're winning 28% of the group races.
Sure.
And I think someone who can understand statistics probably realized that it might actually be a worthwhile endeavor to pursue.
Yeah.
And we went off to Karaka to try and get 6. We ended up getting 5, but we then discovered that the import protocols into South Africa had been allowed to lapse, and we didn't think we'd be able to fly them in, which was a sad thing for Owen, but a great thing for me. I thought, yeah, maybe I'll have something to do at last other than picking avos. I could look after a few racehorses again. But a flight was put together by Inglis, the Australian group, and 15 berths were available to leave on the 15th of June. The result of that was that we expected some other South Africans to come across and perhaps fill the plane for us. There was no real interest, and Owen, recognizing the number of our top horses that had been exported, and in particular the number of top Group 1 winning mares and decent female lines that were leaving the country, it would be wonderful to inject some proper genetics back into the breeding pool here.
Okay.
And I don't think that anything similar to what Owen's just done has been done since Graham Beck bought all those American fillies. Andrew, you remember? I was trying to remember when, but I think it's probably about 30 years ago.
Jeez,
maybe
at
even
least 30
more.
years ago, I remember,
Yeah, he bought those 20 and I mean, it just kicked Highlands off again and really, I don't think anyone can overestimate what the benefits of these pedigrees will be for the next 20 or 30 years into the breeding pool in South Africa.
Were these mostly fillies, Craig?
Yeah, we were going to buy 3 colts and 3 fillies at Karaka. That was the only idea. We ended up with 3 colts and 2 fillies, but we've bought all fillies since then. So there's 12 fillies and 3 colts coming in.
And they've landed, they're here?
That's why we are here.
Okay.
So, these now became my adopted children. The pressure, I had no idea. I've bought 3 horses in my life of all the years of training. Otherwise we raced what we couldn't sell and what other people didn't want. That was the string. And to be sent out to look at this level of horse, never mind buy them, has just been quite remarkable. And I never ever realized how hard it was to spend someone else's money, and particularly a friend's money.
Yeah.
The heart would say, "Cracky, what are you doing?" This is, and you do the exchange rates, and you think, "Oh my goodness, what is the result going to be?" And that's really why I felt happier buying the fillies.
Yes.
They don't have to run. I mean, we've got fillies by champion sires out of Group 1 winning mares, proper pedigrees.
They'll eventually go to Hollywood establishment at Ashburton, to
So we arrived on Sunday night. We left Melbourne, crikey, Saturday morning.
Midnight.
I mean, the time, I'm still waking up at midnight. We haven't caught up yet. But yes, the answer is they're in Johannesburg quarantine now. They'll be there for 30 days. And from there, they'll move down to Ashburton.
Okay. Alexis, you are living in Queensland, Australia. Dad and Mom and Wesley. Wesley's also in New Zealand, isn't he?
Gold Coast.
Queensland, okay. But he's there with you then in Queensland, Australia. What are you doing there? And yeah, I mean, it was always inevitable that you were going to do something with horses because you were born into it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, imagine I didn't. How bad would that have been? It was involved. I mean, so I've started a business at the beginning of the year, but up until that point have been working as a vet nurse. So I've got over 10 years of vet nursing experience, predominantly in neonatal and intensive care nursing, as well as working throughout the world doing sales, leading yearlings at the sales, mares, weanlings, and then stud work in between that, prepping horses. So the business that I've started is helping people in an admin capacity within not just the racing industry, but all facets of the equine industry, administrative assistance, photography for sales, for client updates. So I'll go to the track of a morning and sit and video horses working all day, and then I'll send them through on this program that we use in Australia, which is epic, and it directly sends images, videos, audio updates, or comments to the owners of the horses in one hit. And then I've started the other part of the business, which is first aid assistance in a capacity with supplements, tack essentials, bandaging, basically anything you may need, vaccines and wormers with your horses around the place, but on a mobile basis. So I'll go to the races when they're on, I'll park up, put my little tent up, and I'll have all of those things out there. I go to competitions. I've went to a heavy horse competition. I've been to a reining competition, various things like that.
What is a heavy horse competition?
Those are like Clydesdales, Percherons, draft horses.
Oh, those are the ones out back, yes.
Those huge ones, yeah.
The slow ones.
Yeah, the ones that drag trees around the place. They're monstrous. And they have these pull competitions. They put them in the fancy kit with carriages behind them, ribbons in their manes and tails. I mean, their feet are bigger than a dinner plate. They're monstrous. They have horses, 11 horse hitch, so 11 horses hooked up to one trolley or carriage and trotting around the place. And they do barrel racing on Clydesdales. These guys are running around on barrel race, like little quarter horses, and they're doing Clydesdale barrel racing. It is mind-boggling.
And reining, what is that?
Reining is a Western sport that your horses will do spins. So when they have to do this spin, it's 4 circles one way and 4 circles the other way. They do the big sliding stops. They do canters and flying changes. It's very pretty Western sport. Very, very, very expensive sport. It's in America, massive, and in Australia it's growing. And it's affiliated with cutting. Same breed, they're quarter horses, but cutting is the ones where they jump in front of the cows from side to side.
Right.
So
Do they rope the cows?
Roping is part of rodeo, so
No, not rodeo.
also the quarter horse though. But yeah, roping that's a wild sport. Yeah.
The horses in Australia are just mind-boggling, the numbers and the disciplines, just incredible.
I know there's so many horses, and also those syndicates are huge.
Oh, you can have 1% or even 0.5% of a share in a horse. So you'll have over 100 owners in a horse, and those are the ones that don't like to pay, but they constantly hassle the trainers. I want a photo. What jockey's on the horse? Why has it not been nominated? Why hasn't it raced? Like, those are the ones that hassle that they pull the trainer's hair out. They go mad because these guys just hassle them and hassle them and hassle them.
I don't know if you heard what I said yesterday at the races with Dees, and we got into a bit of a discussion. Yes, I mean, we're all owners around the table. So, yes, you want to get involved with your horse. You want to know what's going on. You want to know when it's running. You want to come and watch it work. Well, that's fine and well. But, at the end of the day, you're employing somebody to do a job. You are paying a fee to a trainer to do his job or her job. Jockey's getting his fee to do his job. When you go to the dentist, if you've got a tooth that needs to be, fixed, you're not going to go to the dentist and sit in the chair and say, "Hi, Dr. Smith, my tooth is sore. What I want you to do is inject it here, pull here, niggle there, wiggle there, do that." You're just going to say, "I've got to fix it," because you're paying him to do his job. And I think it's the same with trainers. Get involved. But at the end of the day, the trainer is a professional, and a jockey is a professional, and a vet is a professional.
Yeah.
So interesting, as you say. I mean, I can imagine that in Australia, with all the 1%ers and the 0.5%ers,
they're picking races for the trainers. They say, put the horse in that race. The trainers, the horse isn't ready for that.
But they want to punt.
Exactly right.
So it's a worldwide thing. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's and it's all for getting involved. But you're
And what
absolutely
you
right.
just raised there, Warren, I didn't have to train as a living. It was supposedly a pleasure and a hobby for us more than anything else. And it came about simply because we were breeding horses that we couldn't sell very often with crooked legs or whatever. So I kept them and trained them, and it grew from there. But we raced our horses without shoes, and that was the biggest put off to an owner who would tell you what to do.
Yeah.
Because the minute they wanted shoes on their horses, I knew I had the wrong owner.
Okay.
So if he wasn't prepared to accept that I was doing it my way, I knew trouble was coming.
Okay.
So before the divorce, we didn't get together. and I learned over time, it was my greatest asset was I ran horses without shoes and put the people off that didn't want to tell me what to do.
No, he was in the same basket as Clinton Binder.
Yes.
He runs it.
What it is, I mean, it's a silly question maybe to ask you what your opinion is of it, because I mean you did it, so you were obviously for it. I mean, whether they got shoes or no shoes, I mean, has your opinion changed maybe?
Not at all. The last Olympics was won by Sweden or Switzerland or somebody. The entire team were unshod.
Okay.
Why were shoes invented? Crusades left England. By the time they got to France, the horses couldn't walk. So they melted the swords down, and the blacksmiths designed shoes for the horses. They were for protection, not for traction or anything else. And clearly there's a place everywhere. And at a place like Summerfeld, perhaps, where there are abrasive surfaces, horses' feet are going to wear, and you have to protect them. There's no doubt about that. But I came across an article 40 years ago where some very wealthy industrialist owner in America had set out to design the best shoe to give his horses the best opportunity to win races. And they did high-speed work on all sorts of track surfaces. Engineers were designing these shoes made of plastic and all sorts of things, stick-on, glue-on, whatever you can imagine. And the conclusion at the end of all the work was the fastest way to get over ground was with no shoes. So I thought, well, we're on a farm. There's nothing abrasive up here. Why do we need shoes? And the odd Summerfeld farriers would come up to do corrective work on our horses or the foals and things. Peter Strong, he used to just shake his head. He says, there's no horses with walls and with the quality of hoof that we have got. The other thing that people will often discuss is if you have arthritis, don't cook in aluminium pots. So now what do we have with horses? We have aluminium shoes, intimately attached to their bodies 24 hours a day. And we complain because they're going sore, they've got joint pains or aches and things. So the first thing we do is pull the shoes off the horses, turn them out until the nail holes grow down. So the owners can't complain, they understand that. Gave them 6 weeks enforced rest. Slowly put them back into work. No foot, no horse. Now they've got a strong, healthy hoof. And from the foot upwards, the legs would just improve gently and slowly. And suddenly those lame horses were sound. And I was never a great trainer, but all of a sudden we had happy, sound horses, and they ran better.
Yeah.
So
have you ever seen a lame zebra?
no, no. Have you seen a farrier working on a zebra's hoof? No, yeah.
Craig and Alexis, just refresh everyone's memory. I mean, Golden Acres was the farm. Let's rewind and go back there. I mean, talk to us about that. I mean, and with you, obviously, your earliest memory of all that, Moy River days.
Yeah. Well, I started in the Midlands in 1978. So I was at the first Breeders' Club meeting ever held.
It was a good year that I was born. No comment, please. Keep quiet.
And so we've been in the Midlands a long time. But just getting back to Golden Acres, that's a farm that I bought after leaving Mallorca. The second, I went there as an assistant and went back as a manager in 1986. And it was basically just 800 acres of open felt, and that was the attraction to it. It was probably the last unused block of red grass in the Midlands. The elevation was there as well. We had the wonderful view of the Berg. And there were 12 stables and like 4 paddocks. And when I left Mallorca, I took the bulk of the horses across with me. So we started off with about 70 mares on the farm. We wanted to train because Bob Evans had been training on the farm. Do you remember Bob? Yeah. So there were some sort of tracks there. And we employed Des Rich, Gary's dad.
Sure.
And Desi came across and started with us. And then we put the new tracks in and slowly developed from there. About a year and we bought the neighbouring farm, Glen Linden, as well. They had just sold up, and we bought, Hilton Hall was there at the time. He sold up, and we were operating the 2 farms together. So the one we were foaling on, and the other one had the weanings and growing horses and the race horses. I found it impossible to be in 2 places at once, and I was clearly a bad manager because I couldn't delegate properly. So we sold Glen Linden and to Nick Robb, who was leasing the property from us at the time. And Nick Robb's father-in-law bought from us, Brian Jenks, and then concentrated on Golden Acres and then developed it fully from there.
Sure, and just when you talk about the past and the history, some names that you're bringing up, the trainer that you just mentioned, Nick Robb, and all of them. I mean, from the past, those are Nick Robb, I believe, is overseas managing a big, well, not managing, working on a big stud farm as well. So it's we've got South Africans all over the place.
We were up at Golden Acres just recently. Have you been up there?
No, I'm going this afternoon.
You're going up this afternoon. You'll be surprised.
I bumped into tennis at the national sales. There was also an unplanned trip. We were at Inglis Easter, and Pippa is Tammy's sister, my wife's sister, and Aventura just made their announcement, and we thought it would be nice to come across and give Pippa some support. So we booked a flight. We cancelled the flight back to Auckland, packed a bag for 6 days, and then came back 4 weeks later. But we stopped in at the National, so it worked out quite nicely. And I managed to meet tennis for the first time, and it's just so gratifying to know that someone's caring for the property again. Because the last photos I saw of the place, we were in tears. I never even showed the kids. We were so disappointed at the way it was looking. But no one knows where the pipes or cables or drains and things are. So I'm going to try and point those out to Bruce.
It's going to be a wonderful walk down memory lane for you. And as I said, the double superlative Stallion Day was there.
Yes.
I mean, and of course they've got Bruce's other farm. Spring Valley. And obviously the 2 are now joined as Blue Sky. But your spot there, you'll be impressed.
There's so much potential on that farm, and to see someone take it to its best.
Sure, you'll be very happy. You'll be very happy. You'll be impressed.
No
absolutely,
doubt.
absolutely. The two, and they can breed a racehorse. I can tell you that the 2 that I'm involved in, with a small share, and my 2 best. Are both bred by them. So I've offered you shares. You don't want shares. You rather go fishing. So, Alexis. Alexis.
Fishing's cheaper than horses though, and it's more fun, and you can eat them too, and it's not frowned upon.
You can eat them, but you can't sell them.
You obviously don't know Andrew Harrison well enough. The farm life. I mean, you were just telling me that Wesley, your brother, is a barber. So I'm no good to him. You're about to be no good to him.
And he won't do my hair, he just does men.
Goodness gracious me. He's not involved in horses, but you are. I mean, why? What is his opinion? Why does he not keen on it?
Just didn't have the feel for it. I mean, some people are, it's in your blood and you can't stop, and other people just, it's part of the family, but by default. I mean, it's just, he loves astrology, he's interested in aviation, and then he's working as a barber, but it was just never his passion. It was never in his blood like it was in mine.
He didn't like hard work.
It's a genetic fault.
Well, you can blame your wife, no problem.
No, for us to be involved in horses, not Wesley, he's the sensible one. But those of us, why did I want to work with horses? It's just a genetic fault.
Sure. Well, you say that. I mean, Mark Dixon was telling me that his son Callum is now got a lovely position at Platinum's establishment on the West Coast, and their daughter doesn't want to know a horse. She's a professional ballet dancer, and she's gone the complete other paths, and it happens like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Before I forget, for the 19th time, Pippa, you mentioned Pippa.
Yeah.
Sad that Aventura have closed doors, and that podcast that I would keep going on about with Andrew, for somehow it got leaked. It was put out on the internet before it should have, and none of us knew. It was just a glitch. And the first phone call I got, now I saw Pippa, I thought, oh no, what have I done wrong? But she's an absolute darling, and we love chatting to her and seeing her. But she phoned, she said, the two of you and Andrew Fortune were outstanding. I said, what are you talking about, Pippa? She said, the podcast is brilliant. Yeah. I said, but Pippa, it's you're dreaming. I said, it's not out yet. Yeah. She's not out. She said, I've watched the whole thing. It was fantastic. Anyway, we took it down thereafter, made a few tweaks and put it out. But lovely to hear from her. What is she going to do? Is there any news yet? Is she just going to have some time to chill?
I think there'll be some announcements very soon.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah. Well, that's wonderful because to be quite frank, to call a spade, if she were lost to the industry, it would be a travesty.
Absolutely.
Well, you can always go and pluck arrows.
No, she's too clever for that. I think that chance is very slim.
Oh, well, thank God for that. Now,
where did you start, apart from Golden Acres?
Well, it was there. I mean, we didn't even think, when I was growing up, this was my life, the farm.
This was a succession plan. I knew where I'd retire on the farm and she was going to take over.
I did the easiest subjects at school because I didn't want to be there. I just needed to get through matric
How
and
did you
then
end
go
up
back to the
in
farm.
New Zealand?
Well, we left, we got on a plane and said bye.
Yeah, what a stupid question. That's an aeroplane.
I was 15. I turned 16 that year. So I had a year and a half left of high school when we left. And then because we left, now I panicked. I needed a qualification. So I applied for vet nursing school with my CV. After working some part-time jobs in hospitals in Cambridge and then growing up on the farm, I mean, Dad would go to meetings when we were at the sales in Durban, and I'd be left in the yard showing horses to people, and I mean, who was around? I'd be on the farm when they were out covering mares elsewhere, so I applied for vet nursing with my CV and I got in. I'd never done biology, I didn't even know what a cell was, and in my first semester, my first class was anatomy and physiology, and they're talking about the cell, and everybody's going on about these things that I'd never even heard of this before. My brain, I said, I've made a mistake. Anyway, we had to redo that subject, but we got through. I mean, I learned a lot, and the best part is that my qualifications in small animals, it's just a piece of paper that says I've got a level 5 in vet nursing, but it's in small animals. So all of my knowledge is from growing up on the farm and from my work experience to work in these huge intensive care hospitals. Scone Equine Hospital, I did 3 seasons there. 250 foals we got through our last season from August through to December of sick neonates. That's excluding the intensive care patients, the post-colic recoveries, foals with fractures ribs, isolation cases, any other horse that comes into the hospital, just sick neonates. As an ICU nurse in that barn, it's 10 stables and you're the only nurse on shift. 10-hour shifts, and you have to go every 2 hours into every stable with every foal. If it's recumbent, you've got to pick it up. I mean, it's a heavy dead weight. Yeah. Average foals are 58 kilos. I mean, by yourself, all through the night. They're on drips, they're on oxygen, they're having seizures. You've got to know what drugs to give them for the seizure. Milk the mare every 2 hours so we can feed it through the feeding tube. And then the mares with colic, I mean, you reflux them by ourselves in the hospital. I mean, we don't have help. And then there's another nurse on the other side looking after the rest of them. If the foal's too big, okay, 20 minutes, I'm going to pick up this foal. Clean them, flip the bed, put it back in. I mean, Scone Equine Hospital has got some amazing vets from the past.
Scone Equine Hospital is like Baragwanath. if you're a doctor and you want 10 years experience in trauma cases around the world, you go to Baragwanath. If you want to learn about foals and breeding season problems around the world, you go to Scone.
Sure.
Because in one season, you see it all.
It's so interesting that you say that, because as I mentioned to you before we went on air, we watch racing from around the world, etc., and you see the racing. Yeah, it's lovely racing, but you wouldn't think, you wouldn't think that, this massive. It's huge, Craig. It's huge.
Yeah, the race course at Scone is a country track, so you
can't judge it by that.
No, it's nothing. It's a breeding place. Arrowfield, you know all the farms better than I know. So
Arrowfield, Veterinary,
Coolmore,
Widden,
Darley,
Barrowmill.
You're talking thousands of mares and some of the world's greatest stallions. And these things are shuttling in. With all due respect to what's happening in South Africa at the moment, it's just been left behind. But we've got all the export-import problems. The quality of shuttle stallions. If you had to take let's say we take from 100 to 120 on the Australian sires log. Of those 20, 10 would be the champion sire in South Africa. Never mind the top 10.
Yeah.
I've been out of this business for such a long time until this year. When I started looking at catalogues again, I couldn't believe the form of these stallions. We have a half-brother to a decent horse, or something that's Group 1 placed perhaps. These are multiple European champions, page after page after page. Witten Bass is just coming back again. He's standing for $375,000 this year. That's, 4 million rand a jump. He'll cover 250 mares.
Sure.
And he shuttles.
But
these
top stallions, they're standing $300,000, $250,000 plus, for a decent horse, and they'll cover 200 plus mares. No problem.
Huge,
And that's why when these foals get sick, hey, they go to a hospital. You're not treating them on the farm.
Yeah. That's interesting. That's so interesting.
It's big bucks there, but Australian racing is just off the charts as far as we go.
Well, I can't remember all these numbers, but I've discovered that whatever happens in New Zealand, you can put a 0 on the end for Australia. Remember, there's only 4.5 million people in New Zealand, but they had 52 race courses in 2010 when we went across. In New Zealand.
Yeah.
And I thought, how is this possible, for a small community like this? But the difference was, each town has a race course, so each town has a racing community. So you have an owner-breeder jockey, owner-trainer jockey. Everyone, it's like Ireland. The only way I can describe it is like Ireland. Everyone owns a broodmare in the backyard.
Yes.
And you train it yourself, and often you ride it yourself as well. But again, with the economy and after COVID, a lot of the tracks have gone down to 37 courses now. So economically it's probably better, but the small community racing centres have gone. But while New Zealand has got 37 courses, Australia's got 380 tracks.
Yes.
Sure.
They have 3,050 meetings last year.
My store, I was at, my town is Toowoomba that I live in, and I was there on a Friday afternoon, set up, selling my stuff, and I listened on the PA. An hour from where I live is Ipswich, an hour from there is Brisbane, and an hour the other way in the bush there's another country track. They raced at the same time at all 4 of those tracks on the same day, plus in Sydney, plus in Western Australia, plus in Victoria, around the country. But in one direction from where I was based, there was 4 meetings in that proximity right there.
Yeah,
Unreal.
I raced at Cairns once.
Hot.
It was hot, but they had the local track, and then they had this
Regional.
corrugated iron shed with buckets. And one half of the bookmakers were betting on the locals, and the other half were betting on the rest of the country. And it was packed.
Yeah, in some states in Australia, 1 in 4 will own a piece of a horse. Others, 1 in 10.
Sure.
But that's the buy-in to racing.
Sure.
I've also just got some numbers this morning. In New Zealand, there's 14,600 owners, and of them, 11,400 own less than a quarter of a horse.
Sure, that's an interesting stat. Wow.
And only 27 of those 14,600 owners own more than 10 horses.
Sure. How's that?
But there are professional syndicators running around. That's all they do. syndicating horses and managing syndicates.
Jeez.
We can do it here, but
Well,
most people don't pay us, so that's the problem.
it's starting to be done. I mean, in fact, with the all the syndicates in the Cape, the Social Squad Syndicate, and all the others, it's getting traction, and I think we can enjoy that it's going to improve.
We don't have the 1.5 or the half percenters anymore.
Yeah. It's funny about the paying issue because that's huge over there as well. I mean, it's all around, but they've got a set-up company that does debt recovery for the racing industry in Australia. So if you have somebody who's not paying, you give them a shout, and they'll sort it out for you. Yeah.
And I'm sure I'm sure successfully too, because sometimes it would be nice to have some help of whatever to be able to say, look, Mr. Harrison's not paying, he hasn't paid for 3 months. Could you send him draft him a letter, not get violent or just draft a letter and say, please, this needs to be attended to.
Come round with the baseball bat.
Knock on the door.
Yeah, knock on the door. Absolutely, knock on the door. But because it's you've got to. I mean, you go to Woolworths, you buy your groceries, you got to pay.
Exactly.
You don't get your food until you pay.
Exactly.
100%.
You go to the dentist, you must pay. It's
I don't know why it's different in racing.
And that's
if
how
you go to the Wimpy Bar on the way to visit me on the farm, you pay for your breakfast.
Absolutely.
But why should you not pay the trainer to look after his horse? Yeah. I've never understood it.
Yeah. This is how I've started my business. So all of my sales photography, people will go take photos of 1 or 2 or 30 horses, do the videos, do all the work, and then upload it, but they never get paid. They just want, and my policy is pay before you do. So I'll get them an invoice, an estimate, and then I'll get the photos prepared. I say, I'm going to put them online, and they're not going online until the payments, and it blows. They are, but nobody does. I'll say, well, you don't have to use me. Yeah. This was my products, but if you want my custom products, you got to pay in advance. Because I don't want to be stung at the end of the day. It's my money is wasted.
It's a business thing, absolutely.
It doesn't have to be, I
see you've got a whole pile of
things.
Equipment here.
Just before you explain that, Equine Digital Solutions is the name of your business. Is it a one-lady show, or have you got one lady show?
Just me.
Just you. Okay.
I need to feel like I need people already. It's hard as I'm starting, trying to get wholesale accounts. You got to make phone calls, emails, prepare things, go out for the day to take photos. I feel there's not enough time in the day to do it, and I'm so excited because I want to do so much. But I need more finances to be able to achieve those things, but I need the time to be able to set them up properly to be able to put it out to the world as well. So at the moment it's a one-man band. Who knows, maybe in time. It's, the mobile and the digital are two things, but I might end up, who knows, have a team that is a digital team that goes to trainers on a, once a week, whatever basis. And then you might have people that, if I have multiple trailers, I need to take somebody 6 hours away or 20 minutes away or to a week-long event somewhere. It might happen like that, I don't know. It's such early days. I started this in November last year, digital, but the mobile, the shop stuff, only since February. So it is so early days. Sure. I want to be there already, but I have to just, hold. Exactly, yeah.
How old are you, Alexis?
32 in November.
She's
that old?
You must
You're old as well. What are you talking about?
He doesn't look a day older than 44.
Hey, I've got a gold card. The month before I turned 65, I got a phone call from IRD, Inland Revenue Department in New Zealand, SARS, to say, you're turning 65 next month. You're reminding me as well. And they said, but you haven't applied for your gold card. So I said, what's a gold card? No, it's a pensioners get in New Zealand. It allows you free bus, train and tram, subsidised servicing on your car, cheaper electricity, and I get $1,067 every fortnight deposited into my account as a pension. So this gold card it's like a magic card. You wave it around and people just give you a discount. So whatever and often you'll walk into a supermarket on Tuesdays as well. Have you got your gold card? Of course I have. You flash it out, 10% off the groceries.
Can you imagine a gold card? We can go to the taxi.
Never mind that. Can you imagine they ask, have you got your gold card and you're not 65? You say, geez, you look, in other words, the teller or the person is telling you that you look old, But,
that often pisses Tammy off. She's in the line. Have you got a gold card? Slap it.
Right, let's go back to Equine Digital Solutions. Talk to us about, as Andrew was asking, all the kit, and because it's not just kit.
It's
tailor-made.
It is tailor-made, exactly. anything you possibly could want for your horse in any discipline, you just have to ask me. I talked to my manufacturer. I've got 2 super manufacturers, and they haven't said no yet. They haven't said they can't do something, and if they haven't got it in their catalogue, they're willing to give it a go. Send a sample and we suss it out. So I didn't realize that jockeys had such a problem here. Like, it's really difficult for them, track riders as well, to get boots, gloves, body protectors, helmets, just the general kit. So now I'm like, God, I have to open this book to get down that line. So I was sent some samples of gloves from my manufacturer. But it's simple things like boots that last. You know, this trainer I do some work for in Toowoomba, he pre-trains and breaks in a minimum of 60 horses at any one time throughout the year. Sure. He does breaking in for some of the country's biggest trainers, especially in Queensland. So these boots arrived. I said, take these and use them for 2 weeks before I fly out to South Africa. And it's just, the quality is so good. Listen to the Velcro. Like, the Velcro is so strong on these boots, but I'm so excited because it's stuff that's going to last. It's you investing in products at an affordable price that are not going to be replaced in 6 weeks' time because the neoprene is broken or they've lost it. I mean, it'll get lost, but the Velcro hasn't gone or something. So all my stuff can be done in any color you want and any material. So 2 brushing boots, mesh brushing boot, or just a synthetic leather. I mean, it's something that's used every day, but you can choose how you want it. And the bridles, which we've learned is PVC bridles here. You can't get really good PVC that lasts. Biourethane PVC is used everywhere in Australia. I mean, in the States and in England as well. But it's designed to be happy in the sun because it's so hot over there and people leave things hanging outside the stables. We don't have big barns in Australia like it is here. It's more some stables and things are hung on the outside. Some places have barns, but then the horses are in the sun.
Horses are trained from paddocks.
Yeah, in New Zealand especially, yeah. So the bridles is, you can dip your bridle in Virkon and it's going to be lasting, unlike some of the other PVC. But the cool thing about these bridles is that they're not going to split. You know, like where your buckles and things are, when you're using that area, the layers break and then you have the rope and then it's annoying. So the bridles are coming in with the drop nose band.
This is not a sales promotion.
No, but you asked about it, so it's just to show all the
it's
things.
Interesting. Never mind sales promotion.
Yeah.
It's interesting to learn about it. It's you know, it's equipment that's people don't know much about.
Exactly. Yeah. And the coolest thing is that if you want coloured grips on your reins instead of just the coloured PVC, it's also an option. Sure. And the guys make bits. My manufacturer says to me they've got over 1,500 bits in their catalogue that they've already been making, let alone whatever else you might imagine you possibly want if it's not enough for what they've got. But they can make these, the Happy Mouse and the soft bits are either solid or they have flexibility. So if you want something with a bit more give, you can get it. Or if you want it solid, you can get it. So I'm so excited to have found this group because learning again, jockeys are struggling, but trainers cannot find proper bits that aren't pinching the horses' mouths, that are not breaking or the plastic being chewed through after a few uses. And then the horses are obviously not getting a proper equipment in their mouth. They're sore and they're not being able to eat. So it's a domino effect. And the cost of the bits too. I mean, we've been told how expensive some of these bits are, and my price is marked up is still less than what they're selling in the shops. Like,
how would you get? Obviously, I suppose like anything, if you order something from us, just place your order and courier it across.
Exactly.
So delivery's no issue, is what I'm trying to say.
It can be as easy as that once we've got it set up. Okay. We've got a friend who's got a logistics license, so he's willing to help with that. And then it's obviously the taxing. You have to be really clever with the way you label things to ship in. So
SARS will be on your back.
But just to name things in a different, compression hoods, you name it as bandaging instead of tack, and then it just makes it, So if people are visiting Australia, I mean, you can take it in your suitcase home. It's easier. Okay. But yeah, let's send a message. We put it together. I get the quote set up because the quotes are going to be individual. I can mass produce, but I want to make enough for what I need for each person. So the quotes may vary at the end of the day with all of this, But at the end of the day, it's going to be get in. I've got freight for airlines and freight for the ship and.
Jeez.
You know how many people. This is one of my most favorite things. So because I've worked everywhere, I've picked up tricks and tips along the way, the hacks, a life hack. And this is brilliant. How many times I've had my shoulders ripped out by big broodmares trying to give them wormers, or ponies that just try to balegar on you and they just drag you and things. So this is an adjustable strap. It has an adjustable strap, so you can fit it on a big head or a small head. You put this in the horse's mouth like it's a bit.
Okay.
Like a bridle, you know?
Yeah. And then you can put your syringe in here. Okay. This can come out, so you can make it a bigger or a smaller hut for your syringe. So if you have a fatter syringe in this, like a 10 mil or a 20 mil, you can put a bigger thing. Or if you have your drenching gun, you can put in here. And then you just squirt in the horse's mouth. The horse has no idea an oral's coming to it, but also it's behind their teeth. So the chances of it spitting it out, one, with the bit being there, but two, it's higher enough in the mouth. Your hands are not being bitten. It is the coolest tool.
I'm flabbergasted.
Did you design that?
I wish I did.
No, okay.
I wish. But
she wouldn't be working. She'd be lying on the beach in Mauritius, living life to the fullest.
And you know what? It makes medicating horses easier because you have to hang off an ear if it's a problem, or they don't like it's a fight and then it's a negative. Come to my mouth with something, it's a negative, negative,
absolutely.
negative.
And as I've seen it, I mean, you would have seen it. Trainers, trying to heads up.
Yeah.
The liquid ends up half on the floor.
Wasting your money.
Sure, that's a great.
It's so cool, hey.
But this is what her collection is. Having been around the world so many times and seen the best and the worst of different things, to be able to say this is what works and this doesn't work and this makes your life easier. There's no labour across there. It's a one-man show most of the time.
Yes.
You have a trainer he might have 5 horses, puts them into his float, he loads all 5, gets to the track, leads them out 2 by 2, puts them into tie-ups, tacks them up, jockeys work them, hose them down, put them, one man.
Yeah.
He goes to the races, he takes his race, he leads it around the parade ring.
I remember there was one very famous sprinter in Australia. I think he went to Royal Ascot. The bloke was a taxi driver. Yeah. I don't remember his name.
That was Bone Crusher. They used to train him tied to the outside mirror of the ute. Wherever the guy drove on his farm, Bone Crusher used to get up next to him on the ute.
Yeah, that big race Bone Crusher was My Waverley Star or something. Yeah. I remember that. It was a hell of a race.
It's such a cool hack that I've learned that I'm wanting to get. My manufacturers are working with. Mirrors in stables. Like horses are stupid. Why do you want to put a mirror? So in New Zealand at the sales we put mirrors up on the walls if a horse is anxious. They can't see other horses, they can't see outside. And I thought maybe it's just a Kiwi thing until I went to Newmarket and I was working in William Haggis's yard when I was working for the McVeigh crew. And they've got colts in those stables that they get upset and they stand with the head pressed against the mirror, with the head down resting.
Like he's talking to a friend.
Yeah. My horse at home, he's got no mates. I mean, there's no horses around him, and I have a mirror in his yard. And when he's eating his food, he's happy. He looks at himself, and he's got a mate there. And I'm going to design these mirrors that can attach to corrugated shaped walls, and you can take it off like with a magnet or with a double-sided tape that's got no sharp edges, but you can take it to the competition. Like we do things by ourselves. Your horse might not want to stand tied up to the float. It might want to run away or paw. As soon as you put a mirror there, it's got a mate. Mirrors keep horses so quiet and relaxed, and people.
That's a new one.
Exactly, and why would you even think that if you've never seen it? But if you have a horse that box walks, or we put tires in the stable and do all this, and it works, but we don't think about it. Just needs a mate.
The other thing that surprised me was, remember after Racing Stripes was made, they left some of those big horses. There's one at Scottsville on the parade and on the roof there.
The roof, yeah.
They have those things as well around.
In the hospitals.
And so if a horse is overnighting on its own, they just put one of those on with a head collar in the stable across the passage, and the sick horse just stands and looks at it. Now it's got a friend to look at,
In the hospital, it was on
and
wheels.
And without them, they're fretting and they're on their own. Yeah.
It's amazing, actually.
We called it jughead, and we would drag it around the hospital. If there's a horse that's by itself, there's no complaint. And you literally put it against it, and they think it's like talks to it when it goes up. It's hilarious,
It's interesting. Yeah, absolutely. The things we learn. Sure. Let's go back to you, Craig, and just find out about South African racing. How do you keep? Obviously, do you keep tabs on things? Talk to us about that.
I don't want to turn this into a psychological event, but I've suffered nightmares about dreaming about horses and things that we didn't ever do properly. And I've eventually just about got out of the business of it being in my head and concentrated and focused on our Avo orchard. But yes, you always keep going back and dabbling. And I've found it very difficult to become too involved in Australian and New Zealand racing because I don't understand what's going on and I don't know anybody. And there's nothing more depressing than walking onto a race course and standing by yourself and not having one person to say hello to. So that's been a bit of a sad thing. So I haven't followed the racing across there as closely as I should have. Obviously, the festival meetings, we will keep a bit of an eye on. But I've really battled to understand. But the South African racing, even today, I can at least relate to what's going on. But I didn't expect to see how quickly things change. Within 3 years, the stallions had changed, the jockeys had changed, a lot of the trainers had changed, and a lot of the race courses, of course, had just vanished altogether. But yeah, through your podcast, we are able to call back the past.
Can you say that again? Are you listening?
It's just fantastic to see people that we grew up with being interviewed again, and to being reminded of so many things that we were beginning to forget. Yeah. So we're very, very grateful for what you guys do. I think YouTube has been my go-to. Okay. Your summation at the end of a meeting is great, because in 5 minutes I can see the whole meeting and say, actually I must now go back and watch those races. Yeah, yeah. I'm sorry that the other guys don't do that as well.
I don't know if you mentioned that the race day wrap. Yeah. And in one of the meetings, I didn't see the reason for it, or how many hits we would get, yeah. and just out of not knowing, and I simply asked the question, and I was showing some stats. There's more hits on that race day recap than there is on actual individual races, because as you say, they want to a quick 4 minutes or whatever, 5 minutes. Yeah. This is the trainer, that's the jockey, that's the owner. Here's the race, boom, finished. And then we move on to the next one. Yeah. So interesting that you say that,
and to be able to acknowledge the breeder, the breeding, the jockey, the trainer, in your summation as well, brings it together so nicely as well.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
The other thing that we're now doing in New Zealand, Warren Kennedy and his wife, of course, is training. So if she has runners in our area, it's nice to go with her to the races, because now at least you can be with someone and it means something to cheer a horse home.
He's in South Africa. Coming, Warren Kennedy.
Yes. Yeah. No, he certainly impressed the guys, and I tell you what, he deserved that championship, because the amount of travelling in New Zealand, the tracks are really widespread, and it's and the roads are small. It might not seem a long way, but it takes you a long time to get there, and the conditions are often quite challenging as well. So Warren, 10 out of 10 for an effort there.
A couple of quick little chit chats before we wrap up. The production team are telling us that the batteries are running low and the recording time is running low, and which is understandable. Avo, you're talking about Avo Orchards. Talk to us quickly about that.
Okay, well, we bought this property. As I said, we wanted a view and we found it. It had been quite run down. And it had a bit of Avo and a bit of kiwi fruit. So we ordered cloned trees, and cloned avocados are simply that there's about 12 clonal rootstocks around the world that are superior. So if you want all your mares, all your racehorses to be by Northern Dancer, you'd go and buy Northern Dancer semen, and then you'd put your mares on. So we chose a particular rootstock, it doesn't matter. It's a Dusa. It comes from South Africa, in fact. Okay. And we've got Hass trees on them. So we've got all Northern Dancer roots, and then we've got Hass female lines on the top. Okay, sure. We've got 452 trees. It's a high density orchard. We were the first in the Bay of Plenty, and one of the first in New Zealand. We fortunately came across a South African lady who had also just been exported across there, and she had just said, no, these kiwis, they're in the dark ages. This is what these guys are doing here is a disaster, and if you want to do it, this is the future. Sure. And funnily enough, this morning I got a text, one of the big pack houses want to hold a field day on our property. We have probably 4 a year, so they're bringing the kiwi orchardists onto our property. Sure. and to show them, if you want to make money in Avos, this is the future. It's the way to go. Well done, so we were there on the cutting edge, which is quite nice.
I still think you should smuggle a few of those pips from here.
Oh, they're like mangoes.
Little bitty.
Yeah. Don't listen to them.
No. We have size 24s. And that's what the Asian market wants. So we're breeding for the Asian market. Yeah.
New Zealand Bloodstock, who's you obviously work closely with and you're an integral part. Steve Davis. I mean, how well do you know that legend?
Steve is a great friend of ours, and he's been so helpful with these selections. I think he might have run me up on one at Karaka. He says he didn't, but I'm not sure about it.
A great auctioneer. I think he's one of the best in the world.
Absolutely
in actual fact.
Fantastic.
And he's a great human being to go with it. You are doing a bit of, you're trying to get with New Zealand Bloodstock and with the Oz team a tour to South Africa. What's that all about?
Well, They certainly are so grateful for what's just happened. I mean, Owen has been a significant investor at 4 sales now. Karaka is the only New Zealand sale. Australia has a sale every 2 weeks somewhere. I mean, they're breeding they're the second biggest breeders in the world now in terms of volume. So there's lots and lots of sales. And we've bought from a lot of very good farms with a lot of money. So it's given me the opportunity to go back to them to say, look, we've now come out of the blue, we've supported your industry, and wouldn't it be nice if we could put a little group of breeders and buyers and agents together and come to South Africa and support some South African breeders? Sure. And if it can come together, we hope to get them to the Cape next year to possibly the premier sale down there. And I think that, again, if it happens, it'll be, every breeder should write Owen a letter and say thank you.
Yes.
And I believe there's a chance that we can do it.
Yeah. If you're involved, I have no doubt that it can be executed. So it's exciting. That certainly is exciting indeed. Last 2 questions before we wrap up. And I should have actually asked this question at the beginning of our discussion, but it doesn't matter. How long have you been away from South Africa?
We left in 2010.
Okay, and just to go to, why did you leave us? Is basically
it's a difficult question. I suppose having young children, an uncertain future. A friend of ours had a farm invasion 1.5 kilometres away. Alexis' school teacher's husband was murdered on his farm. Night racing, we were getting home after midnight. Sure. Family. It's a normal old reason. We were just concerned about the kids basically and their futures. Okay. That was the reason.
Well, we miss you here, but we're certainly darn proud of your achievements and what you're doing, and your whole family. As I say, it's Tammy as well, and Wesley and Alexis, especially you, with your business, Equine Digital Solutions, and there's no doubt you can hear when she talks that there's passion, and if you haven't got passion, you might as well pack it up.
Yeah, and she knows what she's talking about, which is more important.
And I'm so grateful because both of them have pushed me so hard to do all this stuff overseas, sending me, and I said, oh, do I go to America? They just said yes for everything. Go, 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 So I'm so grateful for what they taught me growing up. Like, I don't remember learning how to put a halter on a horse or drawing up meds to inject a horse with, but I just always knew how to do it because they taught me. So if it wasn't for them and growing up in that environment, I mean, it would be so different. So and if we didn't leave, I wouldn't have had those opportunities too.
Sure, I really just endorse what
stuff.
Alexis has done. If any person wants to work with horses, get herself a diploma in veterinary nursing. It's a lot cheaper and a lot easier than becoming a vet, but it gives you a ticket to travel the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a career that I would encourage any young person to follow.
Because there are people,
anywhere in the world you can get a job.
There are young people out there that are interested in the racing game and in the horse industry. Absolutely, there are.
And I want to just add one more thing before I forget. I've never heard you acknowledge this man's ability to pick winners. Do you know that he probably set a Guinness World Record and that he tipped the entire card one day when he was a Natal Witness editor?
Obviously, you haven't heard that saying, a blind chicken catches a corn, one swallow doesn't make a summer.
I don't know any tipster who's tipped a card.
Yeah, and you know what else I learned about him? You know what else I learned about him from Andrew Fortune? That he was a bit of a golfer in his day. He could play
I wouldn't
golf.
believe that.
No, well,
I don't believe it either.
but you're quite right that you, and I certainly have, we've touched base, and then he's such a humble man as our bushy-head friend over here, that he's not interested in the praise. But you're right, 8 out of 9 out of 9. So it was the German meeting, 9.
9.
Now ask him if he got the pick 6.
Oh, the next time he spins a round, it'll be the first round he spins.
No, but I know Colin Faree was the bookmaker at the time, and he was adding up, and he got to race 6, and he said, "There's 44,000 to 1." He said, "I'm not going in."
But you talk like that, and absolutely, what an achievement that's probably not going to get broken very soon. But what is exciting is you've obviously seen the Hollywoodbets Punters Challenge.
Yes.
And there are a couple of clever punters, that are not every day or every week, but there are some that are winning the pot. It's not easy, hey? It's not easy. Yesterday at the races, I said to Dees, our colleague, I said, right, Simple. Going to be clubbing seals today. We've got 9 races. I've got 4 winners. He said, well, I've got 2, so that's 6. Not one arrived.
Yeah.
And it goes like that.
Yeah.
It absolutely goes like
We
that.
had a Moira of a bookmaker who came up with a bit of a novel idea. He said, there's pick 6s for winners. He'll have a pick 6. Choose the horses that run last in the pick 6 leagues. You know how difficult that is.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
It's just as
You can't
difficult.
do it now because Hollywood have got this new thing. If you run last, you don't get the incentive
Yes,
bonus.
so everyone's trying over the line.
You know how many trainers you know? And it's a good incentive. The trainers anyway. But tipping winners and selecting winners, training winners, and predict. It's not easy. It's certainly not easy. Last question for you before we close. No time in your busy schedule for love in your life?
Oh, I have a very, very, very good supportive man at home. He's unbelievable. He's a cattle farmer raised like that. He's a diesel mechanic, but he's like 100 out of 10. I mean, the maths isn't right, but I think he's had something wrong because why he hasn't run away. I mean, as a cattle farmer, he's there feeding my horse every day. He's putting oil on his feet because he's got an issue there. Like, he is so supportive. I'm so grateful to have him right now. Like,
I'm almost embarrassed to acknowledge he's a good Aussie out there.
Yeah.
Well, you might have a son-in-law soon, by the way Alexis is talking.
If it works, I'm more than happy. Yeah.
And then the last question for you before we bid everyone farewell. Have you got an early selection for the Hollywoodbets Durban July?
No.
At least he's honest. Have you got a selection yet?
No. I'm in the industry, but I don't follow the industry.
Okay, no, fair enough.
It's funny. I should know. When Winx was racing in Australia, because she was so famous, I knew who was racing, but that was it.
I hope Andrew Fortune wins in July. That's all.
Well, no, let's come back to that. Who's your selection?
Well, if 8 on 18 doesn't run, Okavango.
Yeah.
I bumped into somebody in the parking lot. Everybody thinks I'm delusional. Raheel, there's a few people that said Okavango can start now. I'm not saying that Okavango is a racing certainty. I'm saying that they offer, I think the total offer the first 6 or the first 5 or whatever for a place. I think it can't miss a place. And Andrew Fortune, when he was interviewed, he was upbeat about this. Why not? What's the horse done wrong? I mean, I'm not saying he's a certainty in the July. I'm saying he's my place bet selection, Okavango. So there we go. But that's it, guys. Thank you for your time. Jeez, we could have sat here and spoken. Could have done a Netflix series.
We've got some sweets there.
No, I have. Not you.
Once you taste them, you'll be fighting.
Whittaker's chocolate.
Okay, what we'll do is
Pokey,
we had an Irish owner came over. He bought a bottle of whiskey.
Okay.
We had to.
Unfortunately,
We had to work it out. We had to go exactly half. So what we'll do is we will be civil. We will open the packet, count how many there are, and half for you and half for me. Guys, lovely. All the best to you.
Thank you
And
so
we look
much.
forward to being in your company for the rest of the time that
Yes.
you're here. And lovely to touch base.
Brilliant.
Thank
Thanks so
you.
much.
That's a wrap from us in the Box Seat podcast. Craig Ramsey and Alexis Ramsey, and to, of course, Tammy back home and Wesley, a big shout out to you. That's it from the In the Box Seat podcast. Punt well, stay safe, be kind. And as always, we will see you in the number 1 box.